We are
Live.
live.
We're live. All right, guys. This is the Cut
No,
the Door
no.
show where we have authentic conversations with corporate athletes and business owners, highlighting their journey to success. I'm your guide, Kabia Sari. Today, we're talking to Chris Mouzon, highlighting the work of my good friend here in the financial services space.
We're
And the
here.
reason I wanted to bring him on is to get a little bit deeper. And I've known him for a while now, and I think he's providing a service that we all need extremely. And I wanted to just chat with him a little bit more. First, let me give you a little background here. He doesn't know I'm doing this, but we'll give him a little background. Then we'll give him the opportunity to correct any mistakes here. So Chris has spent 7 years as a restaurant manager, 3 years prior to that in food service. And it took him 10 years in the industry before he realized this wasn't going to provide him the quality of life that he wanted. So he and his wife, Zahraa Mouzon, decided to put all of their energy and put all their chips on the table and build a financial services agency. And boop, there you have United Agency was born. And since he's been involved in financial agency, he's become extremely passionate about teaching people what he calls the money game.
Mm.
So they teach people how to build wealth, avoid taxes by educating them on financial concepts. Chris and his wife give this information complimentary to anyone looking to improve their financial life. You do not have to be a multimillionaire. And
Mm-mm.
unlike other financial advisors, and he'll correct me here, I'm sure, they'll work with you for free for as long as it takes to reach your goals. And Chris states, I've heard him state this a couple of times, that his priorities are faith, family, and business. So we're going to get into a little bit of that today. Chris, thanks for joining me, my brother. What in there you like to correct,
Uh,
man? Start
well,
off. Tell
well,
us a little
first
bit.
off, listen, man. First off, I appreciate the intro. I think that might be the first time I've gotten introed on a show. So well done. Thank you for doing your homework a bit, even though we see each other often. Appreciate you doing the homework. And yeah, let's just take 2 minutes to shout out you and the show. Ever since I've known you, bro, like the cut the noise movement, like the cut the noise mantra has always been something that has stuck with me because it just made so much sense. It's why we started connecting. It's why when I started to learn about how you looked at right the health and wellness space and some of the things that you would talk about and how I would talk about finance was very similar. And that common theme of cutting the noise, of just kind of quieting down, of stop listening to the masses, really reigned true for both of us, for you and for myself in our respective industries. So that's one of the things that always connected me with you. And I'm so happy that you kind of started this movement of this cut the noise because I think it's needed in a time like today. So kudos to you, my guy, for setting up this platform, man.
I appreciate that, man. I appreciate that for sure. And listen, it's really awesome to find like a counterpart. Obviously, I come at it this and I like you call it movement, man. I'm gonna take that. It is a movement, you know,
That's
you're
right.
right. It's far more than health, but I started more so from the health perspective, and I feel like I found my counterpart and money and wealth perspective, man. So it's a pleasure to actually dive in on that a little bit more. And we'll get to some of that, but I want to take you back a little bit, take the folks back to young Mr. Mouzon and maybe not too young. We'll skip some of the rascal things, I'm sure.
Oh
But
yeah, yeah. We'll save those for another one. We'll save
just
those
say
for
that
another one.
we'll have to bring you back for those. But let's take you to high school, going into college. All right.
Yeah,
I believe you studied at Johnson and Wales down in Florida, University
correct,
down in Florida.
correct.
Um, Going into that, tell me a little bit, and I'm curious a little bit about your process, right? Did you know you wanted to go to that particular university? Did you know you wanted to pursue a bachelor's degree in food service management and
Mm.
culinary arts? Summarize that a little bit for some of the listeners that maybe are in that stage, or parents who have children that maybe are in that stage, kind of what's going into mind of
Sure.
young Mr. Mouzon?
Sure. And I appreciate the question because we talk so much these days about like kids not knowing kind of what they want to do or right which ways they want to go in life, whether it happens to be college, now being more on the entrepreneur side of things, right? Just not knowing. But I was very sure as I went to basically a college prep school, a college prep high school. So like everyone that graduated was going to college. Like that was just a foregone conclusion. It's just what you chose to do. And in school, I was a pretty average student. I was in some AP classes, but I was a pretty average student. Wasn't really thinking about, you know, going to some of the top schools for any type of academics. But what I did like to do and what I enjoyed doing was cooking, right? I enjoyed
Mhm.
cooking. I'd be around my mom, right? I'd be responsible for cooking at a little bit younger of an age. I knew my way around a kitchen. I'd never really worked in restaurants, but I enjoyed being around the kitchen and being around food. And so just kind of on a whim, not knowing anything that I wanted to do, I was like, I'll go to culinary school or I'll figure out, how to work in this kind of, hospitality food service world. And I only actually applied to two colleges. I only applied to Johnson and Wales and South Carolina. South Carolina had a great hospitality program, if I remember correctly, and then Johnson and Wales. Those were the only two colleges that I actually applied to. And for my level of academics, and like actually, I could have probably applied to a bunch more different schools and gotten into some of them. I just never had that desire. I just felt like, all right, if I think I want to do this hospitality or cooking thing, let's go this direction. Saw Johnson and Wales, knew I didn't want to get just like a certificate, knew I wanted an actual like college experience and a degree, and I wanted to go that direction. So that's how I landed on Johnson and Wales. They had like 4 different campuses at the time. They had Rhode Island, which is their main campus. They had Denver. They had Miami, and I think at the time they had like a North Carolina campus or South Carolina or something like that. And so out of all those schools, out of all those locations, I chose Miami, obviously, right?
I wonder why.
Exactly right. Wonder why. Kid from Philly, never really been out of state like that. Just pick up and leave at 18, move to Miami, go to college. Wound up playing college basketball when I went down there, but really focused on my culinary and food service management degree.
That's awesome, man. I gotta peel that back just a little bit, but that level of certainty to only apply to 2 colleges in a world where students are typically applying anywhere from 10 to 21.
Mm.
Uh, have you always been that way? Decisive, knowing kind of what you wanted to try, or was this just one area where you just knew that much because of your love for cooking?
It's a good question, man. Because again, it's making me reflect, and I don't often sit down to reflect about it. But if I did reflect on it, and probably the people around me would say the same thing, I've probably always been decisive and kind of knowing what I wanted and just kind of go in that direction and go in that path, right? Not really letting people deter me, just kind of making my own way. I played a lot of sports. In my like I literally have played probably every sport you can think of. Uh I had a summer of doing crew. I would play badminton, I was bowling, I swam, I played water polo, I played basketball, lacrosse, soccer, right? Like anything that you want to name, I've probably played at some point, but I've stopped all of them. Like I literally would just like stop. I remember telling my mom one time after I wanted to stop swimming that like I'm not going to the Olympics, so I'll just stop swimming. And I just stopped. I was good, and I just was like, I'll stop. Right, just moved on to the next sport, and then that I did the same thing in college. In my senior year, uh, I quit. I quit the basketball team just because I was like, I'm not going to the league. I'm just let me go get a job or something. And so I just would always kind of find my own path.
So it sounds like it was important to you to be the best at whatever you did.
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely. Like
All
I
right.
think that's well put. Absolutely.
I like that. I like that. Well, I can definitely tell, brother, and it's a spirit I admire for sure. So let's take what would you do things exactly the same way sitting here now? Would you approach it the same way
From a college perspective or a
from a
career
college from a college perspective, and then we'll talk a little bit about kind of coming out of college and searching for that career path.
yeah. I would, right? Again, we talk about, again, future children and saying, hey, is it going to be the right thing? But these experiences shape us. We know this type of stuff could be, right? Like, it's really the experiences that shape you. It's really what you're exposed to, the conversations, the growth that has to happen during those times. And that was a major period of growth in my life, right? Like, being an only child, moving 1,000 miles away with no family or friends or whatever, and just kind of, even though it's a college setting, being a brand new city and just, learning and growing. It's the experience that was necessary. I wouldn't change anything.
Mm.
And yeah, I mean, it all worked out. It all works together for our good, right?
There you go, for the greater good, if you will.
Yeah,
Let's fast forward here a little bit, man. Say you spent 10 years, 10 years in the food industry. Talk to
just
me a little
about.
bit about that, man.
Just
What did you take away? High points, low points?
Yeah. Again, maybe goes back to some of that decisiveness, and just knowing when I started working in the back of the house. For anyone that's listening, that's restaurant speak for like the kitchen. When I was working in the back of the house, I was doing a lot of line cook, prep cook, worked in a kind of gourmet cafeteria inside of corporate dining for a little bit of time. And it was just very mundane. It was very much like this, like routine. I remember doing the, corporate dining scene, and every morning I'd come in at like 6 a.m. and the first thing I'd have to do was like put bacon in the oven. I just remember like vividly, like this robotic, like, come in, turn on the light, like go into the office, go into the walk-in, pull out the bacon, put it on a tray, put it in the oven, turn it on, like every day, 5 days a week. And after a while, I was like, man, this, like, I think I'm not built for this. Like, this
Do
doesn't
you eat
excite me.
bacon?
I do. But just the process of like cooking it is always a little tough for me. But that kind of robotic back of the house work, I realized kind of wasn't going to be for me. So maybe about 2 years in of me doing back of the house stuff, I jumped front of the house. So again, front of the house, that's more server, bartender, right? Front facing. And that's where I really got into my niche. I realized I was kind of personable. I started kind of growing into myself and kind of coming into like my personality. So on my first on my first application, I lied about ever having a serving job, right? Just because I was a line cook. So before that, it's like, all right, well, I know what to do. I don't have to tell you I've done it before. But either way, I lied, right? Lied on the application. Shout out to the Crab House in Florida. That was like my first serving experience. Uh, Hobart, if he's listening to this, Hobart was the manager at the time, hired me. Shout out to Hobart. But I got my chops there, right? Dropped a lot of trays, right? Figured it out. It's real simple once you kind of know your way around a restaurant. But that got me into front of the house work. So then, right, a lot of serving work, a lot of like, did a couple bartending things, but really I made my niche in serving. When I was down in South Beach, worked at a couple different spots, really was personable, worked at Bubblegum Shrimp, right? All these different little restaurants. And I started learning how to take care of people, right? How to serve, how to, actually use good proper service to take care of somebody, how to be intuitive, right? A lot of multitasking and things, a lot of smiling for people, all that stuff. So I learned a lot of that stuff and I got good at it. So by the time I got out of, right as I was graduating school, um, I got brought on board of a management in a management position with a company called J. Alexander's. So right away, I'm 22 years old, kind of coming out of college, and I walk into a management position in a casual fine dining restaurant. So now I'm like actively in my career. You know what I mean? Just fresh out of school, I got the salary I wanted, right? Fresh out, and now I'm managing people that are twice my age.
Mm.
It was a real wake up call, right? It's a real wake up call being 22, and I have like career line cooks and career servers that are in their like 40s and like late 30s and 50s, and like they're making money, right? Like I would remember restaurants like that. Uh, you got servers that's what they do. Like they're career servers. They have regulars come in, they make $70,000, $80,000 a year, pay all their bills, have the flexibility, make their tips, make their money, go home, and they do that. Like that's their life. Um, and I walked right into that environment. I had to learn how leadership and how to talk to people and how to still manage people that were well more seasoned in the industry than I was. And that was kind of like my first stint out of like kind of hourly work into salary work in the restaurant world.
What was the most difficult part about managing people twice your age? And I'm guessing, were they making the same amount of money as you? Were you making more? What was the discrepancy?
They were making more,
Okay.
right? Like, because good servers, good career servers that are at like, higher end places will make 70, 80, $90,000 a year. That's possible, right? You work on tips. So that's definitely possible. I was making 50 grand a year, 47 grand a year or something, but I'm happy. I'm fresh out of college. I'm 22 years old, right?
Right.
What else do I expect? But that was a tough transition because I came in with a little bit of ego, right? A little bit of like, I'm a manager. You know what I mean? The I've studied this over time, but that transition from employee or kind of like hourly worker into management or into leadership is normally a tough switch because you're using different skill sets. And now once you go into management, you got to realize that you're actually working for your staff. It's not like they're working for you. You actually work for them. Like you need to accommodate them and right grow them and build them. So that transition for me at 22 was a little tough. It was a little tough. I didn't know how to take it. I remember getting into some arguments with line cooks, right? Like in just like verbal altercation of like power struggles type of things. And that was tough. That was tough, but that's how you learn. I had a couple good managers as mentors there, a couple good people that kind of took me under their wing, and I understood a little bit more about leadership. The good thing about stepping into leadership and people management and all that stuff is you often learn right from the good managers that you have, but you also learn like kind of what not to do from the bad managers or the right bad kind of influences you have around you. And so I've picked up both on both sides, and it allowed me to kind of tailor my management style and really learn how to work better with people.
I got you. Well, what you got any quick stories about an example of bad management from you or good management? We'll give you both.
Bad, bad management. Let's start with the bad management side first. Um, I probably name like some of the older managers when I first got started in um, like serving. Just the lack of support for the staff, right? The lack of support for the staff. Again, that transition in knowing that um, you now kind of work for the staff. I would have a bunch of managers, and I'm not going to name names on it, but I would have a bunch of managers in the early days of me serving that like would not support the staff. They'd sit in the office a long time. They would never be accommodating. They're right, real kind of disgruntled management, right? Just like older, disgruntled people that just take out their wrath on like the workers. I knew I never wanted to be on that side of this disgruntled old manager, and I always would figure out how they got there and kind of why they were being this way. Um, so that's one side. Good management, um, leadership. I learned talk about Jay Alexander's right. Our GM, his name was Unsun. Unsun taught me a lot about leadership early. Right, he taught me a lot about kind of how to talk to people properly, right, and how to get the most out of people, how to listen and things like that. Those were like key traits that I took because my next position after I left Jay Alexander's, I started working for the Cheesecake Factory. So that's what kind of got me over on the other side. But I took a lot of leadership lessons from him.
So, what pushed or what pulled you into financial services?
Yeah, just I mean, if you know anybody that works restaurants, right? It's just it sucks long term. It's long nights, holidays, weekends. You're overworked and underpaid at the essence of the business. So um me and at the time my then girlfriend who's now my wife, right, like we were just kind of having the conversation about knowing that we needed to do something different, knowing that it needed to be something that could help people, that was a business that we could start. And it just so happens that somebody in the financial space approached me and started to talk to me about being in the financial services industry, asked if I had looked at it. I told him that I hadn't, right? No one's really ever talked to me about being in financial services, but he basically said it's just another people business. And since I had come from hospitality and I had come from like the service side of things, I figured I would look at the industry from a people standpoint, not from like a I want to do good with money or right, like kind of teach people money standpoint, more from like, is this something that's good for people? Does it help people? I'm already good with people. So
Mm.
that's what got me introduced to it. And then from there, me and my wife just kind of fell in love. Like, hey, this could be something that really takes us to where we want to go. A ton of people need it. We know the supply and demand arbitrage is always big in when starting a business, right? I try to tell people that a lot of times, bro, is like, you know, people pick businesses that it's like hustling on a crowded block, right? Like it's just
Mm.
there's a lot of people doing it. So there's low demand. There's a lot of supply for it, but there's really low demand. People that start, and no knock on any of this stuff, but people that start lifestyle brands, right? Hats and t-shirts and that type of stuff. Sometimes it's tough to get that stuff off the ground because there's a lot of people that do that. And there's not a high demand for it because no one really needs another hat or t-shirt or something like that, right? They just want to support or they like the message. But those often are things that are tough. So we found that in this financial space, if we targeted not what the traditional financial world does, because the traditional financial world goes after the money, right? It's how they make it. So if we found the white space and we found this niche of the underserved or the people that maybe aren't as financially savvy or comfortable with talking to someone financially, let's talk to them and help them get it. We're now helping the masses. If we can, right, kind of create around how to get the message to people, we knew that some good things could happen. And here we are, 9.5, almost 10 years later.
9.5, almost 10 years later, man. I would love to know as a little bit more about like finding your niche, but the question I really want to ask you is what really either excited you or what really grinds your gears about the financial services industry as you found it?
Hmm. Uh, there's a bunch as you really get into it, but really just how the system is so rigged, how the financial they make money seem so complicated, and it's not. They make the concepts and the things that they talk about seem so like it's so much run on fear of the news and there's this media outlet and all these things, and they make it sound so complicated. And it's really just not. People need very simple things to help themselves get a financial plan in place. It's very simple stuff. It's just I've always looked at it and taken the approach of like, well, why don't people do it? And a lot of times the reason why can come from just a baseline of like education, of like people don't have the financial education or the knowledge that they need to get to where they want to be financially, or sometimes they just don't have the right systems in place for their money or the right philosophy around their money because they hear a lot of different opinions, or they might hear a lot of different takes or pieces of advice of what someone should do for their money. And that confuses people. So that's why if we just sit down with people one on one and focus on their own financial plan and cut the noise, so to speak, right, we can
Right.
we can get people to a better place.
So with that said, man, what are some of first of all, Ash, let's make sure we clip that. Get a little clip from that because I think you hit on something crucial there that I think a lot of people will resonate with a lot of people. There is a lot of fear. There is a lot of it is fear driven. That's why the news is 24/7, pumping out all types of numbers and things that don't even make sense. But I'd love to hear from you, man. If you could break down a little bit about like the noise around the financial industry, like what should people look out for, right? What are some of the fear-based messaging out there that maybe they can, you know, back up from or not let it scare them or
Yeah.
something around that, man.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, there's two sides to this fear-based thing. There's a fear of like losing it all, inflation, the things that you hear a lot about on these news cycles, right? Inflation and cost of things going out or going up and things running out, and right, like that fear side even if it may be real, it's not what you focus on during these times, right? Those all may be things that are happening or will continue to happen. But if you don't have control over them, it really doesn't make as much sense to be focused on them. And most people are focused on things that they really can't control, nor should they be paying attention to. Right. And that's one side of things. There's this other side that also I find that happens a lot is when we're trying to kind of run away from our situation quickly, we get into this get rich quick mindset, this lottery mindset of like, man, I just need the one play and then I'm good. I just need to do the one thing and then I hit it, right? If I build this one thing, right? Like it's always like people are one move away, right? And they want to get there in one move.
Mm.
They don't understand that this is chess, right? You don't get there in just one move, right? There's lots of moves you have to make in order to secure yourself financially. And oftentimes when people are scared, they run to that. How do I get it tomorrow? How do I get it in a week? Right? They don't think about the long-term building of something, that all of these things that they're fearful of, the inflation, the right things going up and running out of food and water and all these things that they think about, the stock market going down, losing their retirement. These are things happening over time. So if you treat your, growth of wealth or growing of money the same way over time, then you'll be able to combat that. But we're too focused on that side and not focused enough on the what are we building towards in order to get ourselves financially good.
That's powerful, man. So somebody who hears that message and is like becoming aware just for the first time that, hey, listen, I haven't been doing this right, um, but I don't really know where to go. Should I call up a financial advisor? Should I go and talk to my bank? Right? Where do I go? Maybe that person is married, right? And they've never really sat down and had a conversation and created a plan with their significant other. They've just kind of like been dealing with it as it comes, right? Where does this type of individual start?
Hmm. So, my selfish answer is me, right? Obviously, but someone that looks like me, someone that is willing to help you financially. That again, it's kind of like someone that can coach you down the path. Could be your coach, right? You understand the coaching relationship. For anyone that's listening that wants to find someone to help them guide down the path of money, find someone that you can relate with as a coach, as someone that can impart some knowledge or some wisdom on you, someone that you actually like. You might have to get to know them a little bit so that you can trust them a bit more, right? Get a referral from somebody that actively sits down with a financial coach or a financial planner. We are separate from CPAs or financial advisors, just a little bit different, right? CPAs, again, deal more with your taxes. They're not really going to guide you down a full financial planning path necessarily. They're going to help you save some money on taxes, even help you plan for some future taxes if you have a good CPA. Your financial advisor really is more there for the investment side of things, how to structure your 401k or how to structure that IRA or put in that mutual fund, where to put the monies. That's more of a little bit more of that advisor side. But if you just have questions, if you're just like, hey, I'm looking at my debt and I'm not really sure what to do. Should I pay off debt first or should I save more money? Hey, I'm looking at my emergency fund. How should I split up my emergency fund versus my long-term retirement savings? I'm not sure about my budget, right? I'm not sure how much money I'm making or what's going out. Those types of questions, you want to sit down with a financial coach, somebody that can coach you through the process of your entire financial life. And that's what we do at United Agency. That's what I do, right? In business is I coach people financially. It doesn't matter what level you're at. And that's one of the things could be that really hold people back a lot of times from reaching out to someone financially, is because they think sometimes they may speak at a level they don't understand, right? There's a lot of, again, they try to make this money game feel like, oh, you don't know everything. And if you don't know this, you won't be able to do. Money is simple, right? It's very, very simple. Spend less than you make, save and invest for the long haul, stay out of consumer debt. high interest consumer debt, right? If you find an asset class that you can build in, that you can get a specialized knowledge in, work in that and invest your monies in that specialized area and continue to build. It's a very simple concept, right? We just got to get to like the emotional place where we can understand what to do. And people are fearful of their knowledge level when it comes to money. So that stops people from reaching out because they're like, oh, they're going to talk to me about things I don't understand. That's why you have to get around a financial coach that will talk to you at your level. It's one of the things that really does set me apart. I think you might have asked that question earlier, but one of the things that sets us apart is we learn how to talk to people at your level, whether you're at a 101, 202, 303 level, whatever your knowledge is, we talk to you at that level so that you can then learn your money. And so that's really kind of what sets us apart on the side.
And guys, you just heard Chris share the secret sauce of United Agency and how he works with people. I actually just recommended him to a friend of mine yesterday. And what you just hit on, Chris, in terms of people being fearful to reach out until maybe they have all their ducks in a row. That's exactly the conversation I was having. Don't wait till you have your ducks in a row. And I appreciate you, Lena, on Facebook, sharing. This is very deep. Thank you for sharing your knowledge. Thank you for watching, and thank you for sending a message and a comment. You can see us on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and brother, we'll take it home with just maybe two more questions I have for you here. We'll try to
Absolutely.
wrap it up in like a minute or two. But main question I wanted to ask you is, if somebody watches this and they want to take one thing away, what is that one thing? And then I want you to tell us, you know, in your life, whether it's health, well, however you want to take it, right? In your life as a totality, how do you cut the noise?
Hmm. Got it. So one thing to take away. It's normally the same takeaway all the time when I talk to people is you really do need a financial coach. You need someone that is outside of your sphere, that is not your friend, family member, unless they're a professional in it, that's fine. But if it's just a family member or a close friend or a peer or a coworker, there it's kind of like the blind leading the blind, right? There's not a lot of great guidance out there for everyone's individual financial life. So you got to find someone that can help guide you financially. Find a financial coach. Reach out to me. Reach out to anyone in our organization, right? Because we're trying to help people understand their money, and it's individually, it's different for everybody. It's different for everybody. So, but you need someone there. You need someone there. You cannot expect to go through your entire life never sitting down with a professional of money. It just doesn't work. It's like going through life never seeing a doctor, or going through life like never having any form of education from a mentor to a teacher, right? It's just you got to put yourself in a position to do that and get comfortable with it. So that is the takeaway. Find somebody that can help you understand a little bit more of your money. Put a plan in place. How do I cut the noise? How do I cut the noise? Um, it gets harder and harder to cut the noise, right? It gets harder and harder when there's more and more voices, when there's more and more people around that have an opinion, that you value their opinion, that have a voice. Um, but spending time every day recalibrating, thinking of those thoughts, right? Like getting time to yourself, that's always important. It's something that I always make a practice, whether it's in the morning or whether it's the night. I'm always going to get time to just check back in with myself and kind of recount and clear my thoughts a bit. But also the other way I cut the noise is by putting on good things. I often put on a lot of good things to put in good information, right? Cutting the noise, one side is getting away from the negative or the bad information or the noise that we don't want to have in our life. But then there's the other side of like putting in good things so that the noise doesn't bother us as much. So I listen to a lot of things. I listen to a lot of sermons. I listen to a lot of um, podcasts or books. Um, I try to be listening in my industry, listening to financial things, studying things around the market or around personal finance. I really try to be a student of what I do, but a lot of it I know is just the mindset. So I try to put good things in, not just I'm very aware of blocking some things out, but I'm also very conscious of putting good things in.
That's a powerful answer, man. Thank you for giving us both sides of the coin there. I appreciate it. And brother, before we let you go, quick yes or no from you, man. Do you fast? Do you fast? Do you practice fasting?
Yes, I do. Thanks to you, man. Thanks to Coach over here.
I love to hear it.
Listen, let me stay there for a second because you introduced. This is why, again, having a coach is important. I just talked about the financial coaching side of things, but let's talk about the health coaching side of things. Like having someone there to guide you and give you the information that you didn't necessarily know that you needed to get yourself back in alignment, to get your body in order, to make sure that like things are working properly, right? So at the end of the day, you have to make sure that you're putting yourself in a position to receive new information that's going to help your life, that's going to make sure that you get your life to where you want it to go. And I appreciate you for introducing me to fasting. I now do a weekly 36-hour fast. Uh, haven't been consistent over a few weeks, but we're always here,
We'll
right?
talk about that off there, off
Exactly.
camera.
Off camera, off camera. But we're getting back around to it, getting my movement plan in, all those types of things. But fasting was something that you introduced that was awesome. And I appreciate you for that, Coach.
Powerful, man. Thank you. Real quick, Lena wants to know, how do we get in touch with you?
Oh, absolutely. So first off, easiest way is to connect with me anywhere on social. Lena, if you're on Facebook, just find me right here on social, Chris Mouzon, C Mouzon 1. You see it on the screen. That's actually the handle in Facebook. So you can find me there. All other platforms also, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn. It's at C Mouzon 1. It's the best way to get in touch with me. And then from there, we'll stay connected. I could send you an email, send you text, right? We'll figure it out from there. But find me across all social platforms.
Beautiful. And brother, I would need you to introduce me to somebody in your network that I can have the same conversation with. Who comes to mind?
Hmm. 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 Man, you already know a few people that I've connected you with. Ben Cook. Ben Cook, I think would be a great person for you to talk to, or even Terrell. Even Terrell. He's heavy in the corporate space and a corporate athlete himself. So even Terrell.
We'll love to do that. All right. Hembo Ash will make that happen. We'll make sure we get set up an introduction. I do know them as well, but we'll get that going. Hey, I appreciate you being on here. Thank you so much for giving the time to actually chat. And guys, we'll just keep talking to corporate athletes, business owners, and people who are actually out here to make a difference and figure out how they're cutting the noise so that you can also borrow, steal, and take some of their things that they figured out for yourself. So appreciate you joining us. We'll see you next time. And until then, peace.
Thanks for having me.